Hello, my name is Keeley and welcome back to my reading nook. Today I have a really fun used book haul. I've been doing a lot of book hauls, but I've been thinking about putting myself on a book buying ban for the entirety of 2022. Like, aside from gifts or any books that people give me, I've been thinking about placing a complete moratorium on book buying because, as you guys know, based on the amount of hauls that I've done this year, I've been buying a lot of books and I haven't really been reading a lot of books. So there's kind of a disconnect there. And so I'm hoping to kind of correct that in the next year, because I just have so many books on my shelf that I really want to get to, but I just keep getting excited by the new ones, and I think I just need to say, all right, you're done. You gotta read everything on your shelf before you can buy something new. Yeah, so stay tuned for that. I'm sure I'll talk more about it in the new year if I do end up doing that. But today I wanted to do a book haul that comes from a couple of different places. So there's a few from the little library box in my neighborhood. I've been finding a lot of really good ones there this year, which is exciting, because I feel like sometimes you know, they can be hit or miss, but I feel like I've been finding a lot of interesting books, and specifically books that I didn't know about beforehand, which I feel like is the fun of a little book box, like a treasure, you know? You can find a new favorite that you might not have heard about before. So some of the books come from there, and the others come from Annie's Bookstop in Wells, Maine, because over the course of Thanksgiving break from school, my boyfriend and I spent a weekend in Kennebunkport, and on our way up to Kennebunkport, we stopped at a used bookstore because, of course, I can't not stop if I see a used bookstore, and I found some really good ones there too. So I think that we're just gonna get right into it, and I think I'm gonna start with the 3 books from the little library. Okay, so the first one is Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I have another book on my shelf by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, 100 Years of Solitude. I hauled that in the summer and I haven't had a chance to read it, but I've heard such wonderful things about it. I'm thinking about putting it on my December TBR because I've just heard like that good of things. I'm pretty sure that he won the Nobel Prize in Literature for that book. I'm not pointing at you, I'm pointing at my bookshelf, I promise. And this book is kind of a tragic love story. So it's talking about these 2 characters who are in love, and the woman eventually decides to marry someone who's like wealthy as opposed to the person that she's in love with. And you know, they kind of go their separate paths and then reconnect like 50 years later. Yeah, and it says 51 years, 9 months, and 4 days after he first declared his love for Formina, he will do so again. So that's really cool, and I think it's going to be like one of those tragic love stories where you're really rooting for them, and you want them to find each other in the end. It's not terribly long, which I appreciate. It's like 350 pages, and I'm excited because I've heard such good things about his writing to add another book by him to my shelf. So that's Love in the Time of Cholera. Yeah, let's see. Now the next one I am super excited about because I had not heard about this book before, but it's super up my alley. So this book is Among the Janeites. Look at that cover. How cool is that? I hope it's focusing. And the back is cool too, like it's got this floral pattern. So it's Among the Janeites, A Journey Through the World of Jane Austen Fandom by Deborah Yaffi. And like, obviously, of course I knew that. So it's basically a book about people who are fans of Jane Austen. I'm a huge fan of Jane Austen myself, and so I figured this would just be like kind of hilarious for me to read. It says, for anyone who has ever loved a Jane Austen novel, a warm and witty look at the passionate, thriving world of Austen fandom. And it says, they walk among us in their bonnets and empire waist gowns, clutching their souvenir tote bags and battered paperbacks, the Janeites, Jane Austen's legion of devoted fans. Who are these obsessed admirers whose passion has transformed Austen from classic novelist to pop culture phenomenon? So it's kind of like an interesting look as to, okay, like why is Jane Austen's work still so popular today, so far removed from when she actually published it? Because there are so many classics that have kind of just fallen out of favor, but Jane Austen just seems to continually stay in the mainstream, and her storylines are recycled so many times in pop culture. So I'm kind of obsessed. I love the book. It has like the beveled is that what that would be called? You know when it's like the thick paper and it's like kind of rigid, like ridged? I was gonna say beveled edges, but I think that means curved edges. But I feel like I've always called that beveled edges. Gonna have to get to the bottom of that one day. But yeah, I love the cover. I think it's so fun and bright. And I just think it'll be really interesting. It's just like a journalist and like a mom. And she like kind of goes on a little journey to try and figure out like what's the deal with the Jane Austen fandom still being so prevalent in society today. So I'm super excited to read this. And then I'm really excited to get to all the other Jane Austen books on my shelf. But yeah, I felt like this was a cool find because I hadn't heard of it before. So seeing it in the little book box was really fun. Yeah, okay. And then the final book from the little book box is pretty long. It's like about 450 pages. It's called My Absolute Darling by Gabriel Talent. Yeah, Gabriel Talent. And this I was really intrigued by it. This is another one that I hadn't heard about before. And it just seemed really interesting. I liked the cover of it. And it has like a blurb on the front by Stephen King, and it says, "The word masterpiece has been cheapened by too many blurbs, but My Absolute Darling absolutely is one." So I thought that was cool, and it was named like a best book of the year. It was shortlisted for some prizes. Yeah. So it seemed really interesting. It's about a teenage girl named Turtle Alveston, and it says, "Turtle Alveston is tough. At 14, she roams the woods of the northern California coast, but while her physical world is expansive, her personal one is small and treacherous. Turtle has grown up isolated since the death of her mother, in the thrall of her tortured and charismatic father, Martin. Her social existence is confined to the middle school and to her life with her father. Then Turtle meets Jacob, a high school boy who tells jokes, lives in a big clean house, and looks at Turtle as if she were the sunrise." So I felt like there was a similarity between this and Little Fires Everywhere. If anybody has read that book by Celeste Ng, I felt like Pearl and the wealthier boy that she becomes friends with, I can't remember which of the brothers she becomes friends with, but she is less privileged, and when she meets this boy who seems to have, you know, this fancy house and like this stable life, she's really attracted to that, and she's like pulled to that stability. And I feel like that's similar to what is happening in this book with Turtle and Jacob. Yeah. It seems dramatic and kind of scary, but I'm excited about it because I feel like there's an interesting contrast between Turtle being such a young teenager. Like, I feel like her age is that of a middle grade, but the subject matter seems to be much more elevated. So I always find that kind of interesting, like looking at those kinds of events through a younger person's perspective. But yeah, it seems really interesting. It says, with Turtle's escalating acts of physical and emotional courage, the reader watches, heart in throat, as this teenage girl struggles to become her own hero, and in the process becomes ours as well. So I feel like it could be like sad, harrowing, but also really hopeful, and like you're really rooting for this girl. Yeah, I'm excited. And it's by like kind of a young author. Really interesting. Yeah. So that is My Absolute Darling by Gabriel Talent. I'd be really curious to know if any of you guys have read this, because I haven't heard about it before, but it seems to be like kind of raved about. Yeah. So that is My Absolute Darling, and that is the 3 books that I got from the little library. And then we will move on to the books from Annie's Bookstop in Wells, Maine. Okay, so the first book that I want to talk about from Wells, Maine, from Annie's Bookstop, is Inherit the Wind by Jerome Lawrence and Robert E. Lee. So this is a play. I read it in early high school, and I really liked it. And I found a really inexpensive copy at this used bookstore, and I kind of was like, why the heck not? So Inherit the Wind is about the Scopes monkey trial, which was a trial, I believe, in Tennessee, where they put a teacher on trial for teaching evolution. And And so it's about, like, the way that this town kind of turns against this teacher and, like, how lawyers come out of town and, like, it becomes such a spectacle for the whole country, but it's centered around this small Tennessee town. I really liked it. It's a, you know, it's a short play. It's like around, like, 110 pages or something. Yeah, this is, like, the way that they describe it. They roared at each other like lions, America's two most famous orators. So, like, the two lawyers are, like, brought in. Like, you know how when there's a trial that's very popular, like, the ACLU will, like, send in a lawyer. Or, like, something like that. So neither of these lawyers, I don't think, if I remember correctly, again, I read it years ago, but I'm pretty sure that neither of the lawyers are actually from this town. They're just, like, on opposite sides of an ideological battle, like, in the nation at large. So their, not testimony, but their, like, what they say in court is really just, like, them using this anecdote to argue about a larger point about teaching evolution. So, like, they're just basically fighting an ideological battle with each other in this courtroom. So day after day, in the torrid heat of a packed court, they battled with weighty arguments, tremendous speeches. Such a drama America had not seen before. Spectators fainted, cynical reporters took sides and started fistfights. The judge, jury, and defendant were forgotten, as two of the greatest orators of the world had ever seen raged, thundered, and strove to literally destroy each other. The audience stood aghast, as one was mortally stricken in the moment of his defeat. Inherit the Wind, the greatest courtroom drama of the century. Yeah. So, I really, really appreciated this play. I thought it was really interesting. And I just love having these, like, little used copies of these plays. And there's this interesting little foreword by the authors that says, Inherit the Wind, the name of the play, is not history. The events which took place in Dayton, Tennessee during the scorching July of 1925 are clearly the genesis of this play. It has, however, an exodus entirely its own. So they didn't actually take phrases and stuff from the Scopes trial, but, like, that was the origin. Yeah. It's pretty interesting. Moreover, the issues of their conflict have acquired new dimension and meaning in the 30 years since they clashed at the Ray County Courthouse. So, Inherit the Wind does not pretend to be journalism. It is theater. It is not 1925. The stage direction set the time as not too long ago. It might have been yesterday. It could be tomorrow. Dun dun dun. So, yeah, they're saying, like, hey, don't take this too literally, but, like, it is based off of a conflict that we continue to have over and over again in our society. And I think that's just trying to extrapolate, like, the crux of that issue, which was, like, ideological battles, and expand on that. So I loved it. Like, it was one of those plays in school where you're just kind of like, oh my god, I really enjoyed reading this. This and also The Crucible by Arthur Miller, for me, were two plays that I just adored. And so I just thought it'd be fun to own a copy. And I like these, like, vintagey covers. I don't know if you can see that, but I like the way they look. Now, I've been putting it off, but the star of the show from Annie's Bookstop is very clearly, you can see them kind of off frame here. I got at Annie's Bookstop a set of 3. Okay, I hope you can see the covers. And they have these red tops. Oh my god, I love them. A set of 3 of the complete works of William Shakespeare. Okay, I love them so much. I found them for, like, relatively inexpensive. There are these cloth-bound editions with the red tops and, like, this kind of red emblem on the spine. I don't know what edition these are exactly. Published for the Classics Club by Walter J. Black Incorporated, Roslyn, New York. Copyright 1937. Yeah, so I'm simply obsessed with them. I saw them up on the shelf and I was like, I need these. Like, just the thought of having all of Shakespeare's works, like, in such a compact package, I just love that idea so much. And I just feel like this will be so cool. Like, whenever an opportunity arises, whether that's in school or after I graduate, like, whenever I want to slowly make my way through all of his plays, because that's my goal, is to eventually have read all of Shakespeare's work, I will just have this, and I'll just have these really, really beautiful copies. So I was super excited to get them. And the 3 volumes are separated into his comedies, histories, and tragedies, so they're not chronological. But I like it that way because I feel like it's easier to find them. Like, you know more like whether or not a Shakespeare play is a comedy, rather than like, you understand what category it falls into, comedy, history, or tragedy, more than you know when chronologically he published it in his career, So I love these, like, literally more than anything, and I'm super excited to own them. I just think they look so good up on a shelf. I also think I might do put them on the shelf like this, if that makes sense, as opposed to this, because I think sometimes that looks really classy on your shelf. I'm also, like, running out of room on my bookshelves recently, so it might also just be out of necessity that I need to put this, like, in front of the other books that are stacked vertically, or stacked horizontally, I mean. Yeah, so these are my completed works of Shakespeare, obviously by Shakespeare. Yeah, I love getting cool editions of classics, and I was just, like, such a fun find to, like, pull off to this random bookstore, and, like, I truly felt like I was just, like, digging around, like, on an adventure, and I just struck gold with these. So I love them so much. They're not, like, the fanciest of the cloth-bound Shakespeares. Like, they weren't crazy expensive or, like, rare, but I just really love the way they look, and I think that they are a really cool addition to my book collection. And with that, these are all of the books from my haul. So in total, if you count all 3 of the Shakespeare editions, that was 7 books. So I feel like that's pretty good. And I'm really, really excited that I got to share these with you today. Let me be careful with these. So thank you so much for hanging out with me in my reading nook. I hope that you have a really nice holiday season, and I hope that you have a really good month of reading in December. Thanks so much. Bye.